Well, hello and welcome once again to It's Your Own Time You're Wasting, Terry and Olly Talk Teaching. With me, Terry Wood here in London, and my good friend and former colleague, Olly Furnival, over in lovely Japan. The eagle-eyed
Evening.
among our viewers will notice another head on the screen. Very handsome face and head of our good friend and again former colleague Nigel Palfreman, who's coming to us live from beautiful Canberra in Australia, where I believe, Nigel, it's been pretty cold recently, which might surprise a few people.
Yeah, it's been pretty cold. It was the last couple of weeks it's been getting down to about -6, -7. So scraping the ice off the car on my way into work has not been fun, but yeah.
Yeah, and we've had a kind of mini spring heat wave and not bad early summer in London, so we're doing pretty well. Just a briefly introduction, Nigel is an expert in the teaching of drama and all things related to that. Not only a teacher of drama of long-standing and great experience, head of departments, etc., but he's very much, I don't want to undersell this because he's done so much, immersed in the world of drama. He writes plays, he has them performed publicly. He's an actor. He performs with distinction, I believe, in other people's productions. He works in technical support, lighting, and all of that stuff. So you are, Nige, it's fair to say, steeped in the world of drama. Would that be right?
Yeah, I've got quite a bit of experience working on stage and backstage. So I've been very fortunate that I've been able to dip my toe in both areas of theatre, which has been really good. And it also lends itself to working in the classroom and being able to teach a little bit of the technical side to students as well as the acting side as well. So it's
Yeah,
something that I enjoy.
brilliant. So what Ollie and I are going to do, because it's rare for you are, oh, by the way, you are our first guest. So you're
Oh,
esteemed in that
exciting.
regard and very privileged. We're going
Honored.
to drill you with questions that we've come up with about the world of drama, teaching drama, its application, importance, and so on. Also talk about differences between Australia and the UK, which tends to be a strand that Ollie and I pursue with the Japan UK thing. But before we get started with the questions, could you just give us a potted history, a kind of potted CV, Nige, of how you've got to be who you are and what you are?
Well, I studied drama at university, and then I'm in an RN as to what kind of career path that I wanted. Did I want to go down the acting route, which I knew that was very, very difficult. There were a few options and avenues that would be open, but essentially I decided to go and do a teaching degree, so or a teaching postgrad certificate of education at Middlesex University, and it was one of the only colleges at the time that just did a straight drama teaching PGCE. So I was lucky enough to get into that program, and then from there I worked, did a bit of relief work, and then I got a job at a school in Essex, and then I came to Australia for a year, did the traveling thing, came back, started working at the school with you guys,
Yeah.
and my wife's Australian, so then at the end of 2004 or August 2004, I moved back over to Canberra, and then started working. First of all, it was a maternity cover at an all-girls school, and then I got a job at one of the local all-boys schools, which is a Catholic school, so it's not the government system. And I was there for 18 years as head of drama and then head of creative and performing arts, which included media, music, drama, and art. And then about 3 years ago, I decided that it was kind of time for a change. Um, I was a little bit burnt out, especially with the head of department position. So I moved to another all boys school and was just a normal six line, well, you call it a six-line teacher over here. So it's just, well, your only concern is the teaching of the subject. And then at the beginning of this year, I got the position of assistant head of performing arts. So.
I think it. Thanks for that. No, it's very full. It gives people a good picture of what you've done. At the end of this little meeting, little discussion, let's come back to, because we know that young teachers may be watching this and considering moving across to Australia to teach and work there. You might give us a little flavour of the kind of routes to achieve that, and maybe some of the barriers and difficulties that exist at the moment. But let's get on with the questions. Over to you, Ollie. So it's been me nattering at the moment, so throw over to you to
Oh,
get us started with questions for
cool.
Nigel.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, hi, Nigel. Great to have you as a first guest, mate. We very much appreciate it. Yeah, so let's start then. So as you said, you worked with us at the school in Essex, East London, kind of border area. So and then sadly you left us and you were Australia's gain. So first impressions when you got there, you got your first job. You might want to go into the all boys because we worked, co-ed together. What was the biggest difference you first found when you started your first job teaching in Australia compared to Britain?
Well, there were quite a few differences to start off with. Firstly, working in the single sex system
Mm,
was a bit of a challenge, especially having gone to school in all government co-ed systems and then teaching in co-ed system. So first of all, that was the biggest difference. But I did find that, and I still do, the makeup of the classroom is very similar.
right,
So in an all girls school, you have the boisterous girls, you have the quiet girls, and the ones in the middle, and it's exactly the same within an all boys system. So the makeup of a classroom I found was virtually identical to the co-ed system. So there wasn't
sure,
a great deal of difference just in terms of the characters and the dynamics of the students within the classroom. The biggest difference for me was the ACT system. So I came to Canberra, which is the Australian Capital Territory, and so their educational system is different to New South Wales, who have their own
sure.
system, which is different to Victoria, which have their own system, and different to Queensland, which have their own system. Uh, and I can't talk on Western Australia because I don't know enough about what it is
Sure.
that they do. But within the ACT system, um, we create our own programs. So we have the Australian curriculum.
Yeah.
So all of our programs, similar to the UK, it's based
That a
on the
national one, is that, or is it
national
state by
curriculum.
state?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we have the Australian curriculum, which runs from um, the equivalent of year 11 in England down to kindergarten,
Right.
if it's called kindergarten now. Um, and then in our equivalent, the A level years, so we call it year 11 and 12, but that's
Yeah.
12 and 13, if
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Same
remember
in
right.
Japan. Yeah.
They we write our own assessments, and all of the
Oh,
assessments are internal within the schools. So they're not a national examination, or they're not a national assessment. Whereas New South Wales, similar to I guess one of the examining boards in England, um, it's called the HSC, and they do external examinations for year 11s and 12s, and I believe also the year 10s, so the GC at the
mm,
end of the GCSE year. And similar to the UK system, it's a culmination of the equivalent of lower six and the equivalent of the upper six, and then you have the exams at the end. Whereas within the ACT, it's a modular system. So we are on a semester-based system. So all of the assessments that we do at the end of this first semester, they're locked away, and they are used later on at the end of year 12. So when they're about to go to university, to be used as part of their it's called an ATAR, which is I can't remember what it stands for, but it's basically the number that they need in order to be able to get into university. So the
okay.
system that we work in is very it was a lot different from the UK system and other areas in
Mm,
Australia. And the biggest challenge for me was the fact that when I was teaching drama in England, we would have the set syllabus,
yep.
we would have when we were doing the performance would take place. We'd have an external moderator come in. They would watch it. We'd give them a cup of tea. They would mark
Yep.
it, give them another cup of tea. They would go off. Never saw them again.
Sure.
Whereas here, I write the exam. I mark it. It gets moderated by people either within my school, or if I ask another drama teacher to come in and read and mark the work, then we have a conversation and a discussion, and then that's their final mark.
A couple of things on that. How does that compare and contrast with how that's seen by parents? Because obviously, when we get to GCSE, A level, IB, we can just say external exams. But if the parent of a kid you teach knows that's your final grade, do you get any pressure? You know, oh, he deserves the grade above. Any of that going on?
Uh, I don't think so. Not that
Right.
I've seen, not that I've experienced myself. Um, there is, like, I struggle with making sure that my unit of work and my final exam and my marks are robust enough that they are going
Sure.
to stand up to what's taking place in the school down the road and then the school, and I've been in the system for 20 years now, so I know a lot of the other drama teachers within our area, and so making sure that what I'm doing is going to be of an equivalent
Sure.
standard to what other people are doing. So
And is
that's
that
the
left?
biggest.
Sorry, mate. Is that left school to school, or how do you standardize? How would a uni? Does your school, the relationship with universities, like what might some schools say, well, that school's exam, they're known for being easy in drama, we'll send them there, or that school's harder. Is there any of that going on school by school university links?
Not really. So what happens is every twice a year, we have a thing called Moderation Day, where all of
Right.
the drama teachers get together and they go through the assessment and they go through the marking package that we send through, just to make sure that the work is of a robust and rigorous standard,
Mm.
and also that the marking complies to the framework of the unit. I
Sure.
should kind of go back a little bit and say, when I write my units within it's there's a system called the BSSS, which is the Board of Secondary Studies, and there's another S which I forget off the top of my head, but they produce for drama a framework, and within that
Mm.
framework there are the unit titles that you can choose to teach, and then there are specific uh, unit outcomes that need to be taught within that unit, as well as a marking framework. So
Sure.
an A grade student should be reaching these points. So there is a framework. I have written the previous incarnation for the drama framework. I was involved in the team that wrote that one, and wrote the current media one along with
Yeah.
other of the teachers.
Ah,
So
interesting.
there is a framework in which to follow. It's not like you
Sure.
do whatever you want and go. So there is there is a sense of robustness there. But
The, Yeah, the reason I asked that, in Japan, I work in the International Baccalaureate, but my school also offers the high school diploma because some students would prefer to use that. And it's just similar to Australia, but there's quite a lot of relationship between university and schools. If we send a child to a university with a GPA of 4.5 out of 5 and they turn out to be not very good, that university will let you know. And they'll let you know
yeah,
that in
yeah.
future they might not trust your school. So it's really, really interesting and obviously completely different to the A levels. Yeah.
Yeah, so again, there are two, or there are three types of course that we are able to teach. One of them is a tertiary course, which the end goal is for them to go into tertiary education and go to
Sure.
university. Second one is an accredited course, which if you do an accredited package, your end goal is not necessarily to go to university straight away. And then the third option is a vet course, so vocational education training. So that's probably more, if it's still around, akin to the BTEC, the old school
Right.
BTEC
Yeah.
um,
Cool.
qualification.
Yeah.
And so at the end of year 12, if you're doing a tertiary package, you sit something called the AST, which I think stands for the Australian Standardized Test.
Yeah.
I might be
Like the
wrong on that.
American, like the American ours, the American one.
And so, yeah,
The
so
AP,
what
yeah.
that does, once everybody's marks have been, they call it scaled, but kind of meshed all together, combine that with the AST, which kind of is like the leveler between New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, and all the other places. So once that's kind of, they've done the mathematical stuff to produce your final ATAR, which is the mark that you get in order to go to university. So the
Cool.
equivalent of, or when I was at school, it was PCAS and UCA. So I don't know
Yeah.
what it is now, but the mark that you would get in order
Yeah,
to, you needed like a 65 to get into one university
sure.
for one course, then that would be the
Ah,
mark that the ATAR is.
all
So
sounds pretty comprehensive, mate.
the
It's one of those things that can melt your brain,
Yeah.
and there are lots of teachers that get wildly stressed out because of the system, and also the students as well. There's a lot of there can be a lot of confusion
yeah.
amongst the students
Mm.
as to the ins and outs of everything with
Uh,
drama and media.
yeah. I've got a supplementary question. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously the
sorry.
systems obviously sounds quite complex and some similarities and differences. You mentioned students there. Have you found any great differences in kind of attitudes to drama, proclivity, uptake? Is there anything different between Oz and the UK or not amongst the students?
I It's funny. It's very cyclical.
Okay.
Sometimes we'll get a year group or a cohort that there's a lot of students that will take drama and be really enthusiastic for it, and then the year below,
Yeah.
half a dozen.
Right.
And then, so
Interesting.
it's a funny, and I found that in teaching in England as
Yeah.
well. It was very cyclical, and it depends on the cohort. It depends on the
Yeah.
makeup of the cohort,
Yeah.
and also it depends on the makeup of the individual classes as well.
Yeah.
If the makeup isn't kind of conducive for creativity, then that can really stymie some of those creative students who are like, you know what, it didn't work for me in year nine. I'm not going to take it in year 10, or it didn't work for
Cool.
me in year eight, so I'm not going to take it in year nine.
I think we've all maybe experienced that with kids.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
definitely.
just before I hand over to Terry, just final supplementary on this topic is what about Terry and I have spoken at length about attitudes to teachers, attitudes to education. Was there any broad differences between how parents, how society views teachers in Australia compared to how you'd seen it in England?
I that's an interesting question. Because and this is something that I will go into a bit more detail further down the track.
Sure.
Because I haven't worked as a full-time teacher in the government system.
Right.
I can't talk to that. But within the private system, there is um, there's an expectation
Mm.
from parents on the teachers to be able to make sure that you're doing this, that, and the other because they're paying the money and all the
Sure.
rest. Um, and likewise, and similar to like where we taught, I had similar conversations with some kids, but some of the kids are very I pay your wages, my
Yeah, yeah,
taxes
yeah.
pay your wages, you should do,
Yeah.
you're my employee.
Yeah.
So
All had that.
it's one of those,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
So, but
understand.
in general, like everyone thinks that teachers are undervalued,
Sure.
and that they don't get the respect that they deserve. And you look to places like Finland where things are so much better and da 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 da. Da. But in order for those things to change, you probably need to have a massive, massive, massive overhaul of the whole of the teaching structure, which would cost a ridiculous amount of money
Yeah.
and take a ridiculous amount of time. Um, and I just can't see it happening just yet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, interesting, mate.
sadly, I have to agree, Nige. So
Yeah.
you were moving towards this then, and talking about students. The next question for me is, as somebody that's dedicated a big chunk of his life to doing this, what is the purpose of drama within the school education? What can it provide students with? Very broad question. I'm sure it's something you thought about a lot and discussed a lot with colleagues. What would be your answer to that?
Well, it's interesting. There's a lot of people get confused between being an acting teacher and being a drama teacher, and the two are different. So the drama is, for me, is much more a holistic approach where you're not just concentrating on your performance on stage, you're thinking more, and I guess in a more intellectual way, it's you're more thinking about the human condition and how people are acting and how people are reacting to various situations. So one of the things that I talk to my students about quite a lot is this idea of action and reaction. So your action is causing a reaction, whether or not it's in the playground, whether or not it's in the classroom, whether or not it's at home, and you're watching something on YouTube or whatever. You watch something, which is the action, and that causes a reaction, whether or not to laugh, to cry, whatever. And that's what drama is about. It's about being able to look at what people are doing and respond to the action that you're being given, and then your response, your reaction in turn becomes the following action for somebody else to respond to, if that makes any kind of sense. So
It does.
within
I don't think I've anybody heard it quite put it that way. So I think that's a really, really interesting thing you've just said. Sorry, Naz, carry on.
Yeah, no. So in terms of that, it's it's putting yourself in the position of other people. So you're really there's a focus on empathy and trying to get the students to understand different situations, how different people are feeling, how different people react within those various situations, and then being able to use those in a context that is outside the classroom. So if there are any issues that are taking place outside the classroom, behavioral issues or anything like that, and you have to do some kind of restorative with the students, then you can draw on the stuff that they've done within those drama lessons. Okay, well, how do you think? And they've got much more of an understanding because of the work that they've done in the drama class. I mean,
I
Yeah,
wonder
and,
how
and
they see you. Sorry,
pardon?
generally, yeah, how you'd see a drama teacher compared to an academic teacher where you've been through all of that with the teacher. I would guess that would help very much with classroom management outside of the classroom.
Oh, absolutely. And it's so drama and music, in fact, a lot of the creative subjects, the relationship that you have with the students, I think is a completely different one than
Mm,
a maths teacher or an English teacher. My wife's a maths teacher, and I'm still in contact with a lot of students, even at the school where we went.
sure.
Whereas my wife, if she'll say hello, and the kids will say hello if they see them in the shopping center and stuff,
yeah,
but it's not the same relationship because of, and these are the kids that have taken drama through
yeah,
to
Sure.
the end of their school.
Sure.
Um, yeah, it because you get to know them
Yeah.
much more as a person rather than as a student, and that's
And
a real benefit.
we've spoken along those lines about maybe teachers who don't have that connection naturally with their subject, about getting out there within the school community to try to be a part and build those relationships, definitely.
the other thing, Nigel, is I'm sure you would defend the element of cultural enrichment within the national curriculums of different countries. Many schools here busy squeezing drama out if they possibly can because they've got other priorities, parental predilections and pressure and so on, resourcing. So I guess that's another thing that you would always trot out as defence the cultural enrichment for all, in which it might be otherwise limited.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the thing that used to wind me up quite a lot is, and it's not specifically drama, it was in my position as head of creative and performing arts, it was all of the arts. And I used to say, look, if you took out all of the arts from your teaching, what have you got? You wouldn't have graphic design because you wouldn't have it in the textbooks. You wouldn't be able to show your documentaries on YouTube or whatever because that's to do with media and acting. If you wouldn't allow to play music.
Sure.
So they're an integral part of education and informing and developing students and when people used to just dismiss the arts as oh, it's a fluff thing to do and the only thing it's good for is to advertise the college when you put on a good musical. And I mean, it is good to advertise the school
Yeah.
through that, but it's much more fundamental than that. And it's a means of nowadays every kid has got their headphones on or they're listening
Hmm.
to something or they're watching something or they're interested in something. And more often than not, it's from a piece of drama that they've seen or a piece of media that they've watched on their screen or whatever. And so
And
when when
what is
people
it, apart from
sorry.
sport, what is it most kids are talking about? Certainly in my school now, all day, every day, lunch, it's idols, it's singers, they're doing dance moves in the corridor, they're doing drama because that's their natural interest anyway. So,
That's right.
just hear them all the time.
And it's the first thing that you do when you're like from a baby.
Yeah.
Is you're playing, you're play acting with, as a parent, you're play acting with your baby, and then the baby's getting up and dancing and singing and laughing and joking, and it's all to do with the creative process and getting your brain thinking. And
So if I
yeah,
could, sorry, mate. Yeah,
no,
if
no,
I
no,
could
no,
just
no.
follow on this point. I work in the IB, and the IB has the learner profile, and it has the approaches to learning, and two out of the five, social skills, communication skills. Obviously, what you've just kind of spoken about, it's integral. It's the core of every IB program. When you get to the diploma program, the A-level equivalent, you have to take 6 subjects. You have to take 2 languages. You have to take a science, a social studies, a maths, and then there's arts. And the arts are the only topic where you can choose to opt out. So you could say, I don't want to do theatre or visual arts. I'll do 2 social studies instead. I'll do two sciences instead. So I don't think that helps the IB in who they are. But bringing that into your own experience, how do you react? How do you respond to teachers? Because I think teachers can be quite dismissive of other subjects and quite territorial. So
Yeah.
how have you dealt with teachers in your career who kind of dismissed you as not an academic subject?
Well, again, one of the things that drama does is regardless of whether or not you're in year 7. I mean, we're in a very fortunate position at my current school where there are specialist drama teachers that teach 4 lessons a fortnight to year 4 students, year 5 students, year 6 students in the primary school, and then when they come into the high school in year 7, then it's compulsory again. So we've seen in terms of the output of the students and the quality of the work that they're doing, a big increase since that's been embedded within the curriculum within the junior school. But moving on from that, it's very frustrating because the skills that you learn in drama, being able to present yourself, being able to talk clearly, being able to make eye contact, are all things that are used in English oral presentations or
Sure.
in a science demonstration. Or if you're doing languages, even if you're kind of not hiding behind the language, but you can use your physicality in order to enhance those things that you're trying to get across. So on the surface, it might not seem academic, but it really does help with a cross curricular
Yeah.
all of the things that happen across the school from whether or not it's from PE all the way through
Yeah,
to the sciences. So again, that's the thing that it winds me up. You have
sure it
and,
does.
and especially politicians that don't value the arts. Just think what you're doing, standing up in Parliament, waving your arms around and all the rest of it. That's a performance. That's an
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolute performance. And then you're using your performance to denigrate the stuff that is
Yeah.
getting you where you are. Sorry.
No, no, so
No,
totally
it's,
agree. Before just what I've thought of as you speak, a lot of where I am and in the IB, and I'm sure probably in England and Australia too, social emotional learning, mental health, it's everywhere. What role do you think drama can play? Because I'm writing lessons myself as a total non-specialist, but I'm finding myself doing role plays to take it away from for some students saying, well, actually, I'm feeling like this. I create case studies, then I go and right, off you go, role play that out. What are the solutions? So even without no specialism in drama whatsoever, but I see myself bringing that in. What do you feel the role of drama could be in kind of helping students with mental health and social emotional learning?
Well, I think again, it's a key thing. There's and from having things like sensory rooms and sensory experiences for
Mm,
those students that are quite high needs is a really important thing. And being able to explain what's going on within the room and the tactile nature of those areas are very similar when it comes to performance on stage. It's a very tactile um,
Mhm.
medium to be working in, whether or not it's bodies that you're working with, or whether or not it's props that you're working with, and those kind of things. So um, I think that is an important part. The idea of the role playing. One of the things that we have at our school at the moment, we have because it's an all boys school, we
sure,
have a program called Forming Fine Young Men, and so that goes into the idea of what makes a fine young man, looking at various programs and experiences that young men have, and then the use of role play is a key factor in terms of that, and coming to terms with um, difficult situations that
sure.
they might be struggling with. And I'm sure it's the same in Japan. I'm sure it's the same back home in England. Um, like mental health
Mm,
within teenage boys specifically, or that
Mhm.
age group is huge. And being able to express yourself through the arts, you're able to there's the possibility of being able to explain yourself at a distance. And so
yeah,
you create that distance from
Mhm.
your own experiences, but you're still talking about it, and it's like that cathartic experience by using the drama as a means of approaching difficult topics and subjects.
Yeah,
oh, it
interesting.
sounds vital.
We kind of touched on, we got towards those areas when we were discussing the adolescence Netflix drama, boys' mental health and societal attitudes. We kind of touched on those things. Obviously, not explicitly suggesting, because we didn't, until you've just spoken now, it didn't occur to me just how drama can help to fill some of the gaps that exist. Just to go back to before going to a supplementary question around this area, practically you talked about how drama can support kind of general learning and progress. The government here in the UK has long considered, hasn't happened yet, replacing the personal statement for university entry, the UCAS process, with a video. Whether that's voluntarily, on a voluntary basis, for those students that are more suited to creating a little piece of uh, video evidence, or whether it's for everybody, I don't know. But that was suggested. And again, that would be really helpful, wouldn't it, to have studied a bit of drama and had some practical sessions within it.
Absolutely. And I think that the idea of being able to use your own voice is really important. One of the things that I've been considering of late in terms of the drama curriculum that we do and also the media curriculum that we do as well is instead of specifically a written essay, um, viva voce, which is what I used to
Yeah.
do at university, and where you have like the list of notes and being able, because there are lots of boys um, that I've taught that writing what's up here down, the two just don't connect. There's a big
Yeah.
disconnect. Whereas you ask them a question and they know absolutely, they know the process. They have a deep understanding of what it is, whether or not it's a drama practitioner or a play that they've done or a character that they've developed and created. But there's this disconnect between the brain and the pen or keyboard, and but being able to talk about it and being able to do it um, and speak about it is a way of being able to have that understanding of what it is that they're learning. And also the advent of podcasts, which are,
Yeah.
ramping up left, right, center.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's also another avenue of assessment that is being used quite a lot.
Yeah.
You've
So
kind of
as we've
brought,
said,
yeah, you broadly answered the question I was going to come to next, which is obviously how being involved in drama learning can boost collaboration, empathy, emotional intelligence. You've talked quite a lot about that. So I'll put you on the spot, but obviously without mentioning names. Can you cast your mind back over a kind of career and think of one or two students who school was not going well for them? They weren't academic, maybe, or they were troublesome and involved in other things that were not particularly positive and were kind of saved by drama, or you saw flourish because of the world they entered in the drama classroom. Could you shed any light on maybe a couple of case studies in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, there are. I think that you would find that there are more instances of students that flourish in the drama classroom at the exclusion of every other subject
Yeah.
because they found it as being a safe space to be able to articulate themselves, to be an idiot if they want to be an idiot, to be the joker, but be it in a constructed way.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple of people that have done particularly well um, by being in the drama class. I'd like to say it's down to me, but I can't
There
take credit
is.
for everything. But yeah, and so there's students in England that were not necessarily academic, but thrived in the drama class, and particularly, and one of the again, this is another going back to my last point where practically they're able to thrive, but when it comes to the written side of things, that's the thing that brings their marks
Mm-hmm.
down, especially when
Yeah.
it's GCSE or A
Sure.
level work. Um, and it's been the same in Australia where all the world around them seems to be against them, and all the teachers seem to be against them. But when they come into the drama class, that's an area where they can shine. There's a girl that we all taught at our school who I think was given a bad experience by some of the teachers there. Um, One teacher in particular refused to come and see them in the school musical, where she was stunning.
Yeah.
what
And that's a real shame. And that's one of the things. So working in Canberra, which is very, very small,
Yeah.
there have been lots of kids who have come through the schools and were absolute tearaways, really, just not very pleasant in the classroom. 10 years later, they're back as teachers.
Mm,
And that's,
brilliant.
for me, that's brilliant. And they've come up and apologized for being a pain and all that kind of stuff. But there are some other staff that just hold the grudge of what they were like as students. Now, I probably wasn't a very nice person when I was 15, 16, but I'd like to think that I've changed and evolved. And the fact that even if they were not good in the classroom, they've come back to be a teacher. So the school must have done something good in order to
Yeah.
get them back, get them into teaching, and then back to the school where they were a tearaway. So,
If I could just add a real life situation without naming anyone to what you were saying at first. As a non-drama teacher, I was obviously in the humanities, starting a new subject called citizenship in a new school, in a new profession. Yeah, it was tough at times, and some kids I had trouble with, and I don't know who gave me the advice, which I've relayed on as I have get involved in school events. So I started helping out in the drama school productions, acted a little bit terribly, but I saw those kids who were being in my opinion, a pain to me, completely different people in the after school in their own time planning for these shows, and for me personally really helped me with my classroom management. And I as I say, I ended up doing a couple of shows, and it was really did work. I can really back up what you say about allowing them their space to shine. And suddenly I got some of those, oh right, I get you now, I can act a fool with you now because I'm in the drama show with you. And I really did help build up a good relationship. So to those teachers who are having trouble, do the opposite of the teacher you mentioned and ignore them. Get involved, and you'll see them in a different light. So totally back that up, mate.
I
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
You've got a genius for acting the fool, Ollie. So I don't know why it was ever a barrier. It's something you're very good at.
Well, yeah, but actually, I grew to make that. I almost said it earlier when you were talking. How much of teaching's acting? I grew to make that part. I grew in confidence to make that part of my role. I was too hung up about perfect behaviour, follow the school rules, because I was new and I had to, in my opinion, assert my authority. But I think doing that let me see. Right, this is how we act with a 13, 14-year-old boy who won't shut up in my class. This is why. This is what they're at, and then you can work with them. So it really did help me, and yeah,
Yeah.
and then I could bit by bit bring that into my own persona as a teacher when I felt I had more standing and confidence in the classroom, which is certainly what I did.
Yeah,
Oh,
teaching is acting. Every single lesson is a performance
God, yeah,
to some
I
God,
was
degree.
going
yeah,
to say it takes a while for you to get your teaching persona,
yeah,
for you to
100%.
figure out how you're going to be relating to the kids and how and you all probably got given the same advice: don't smile till Christmas.
We talked about that.
You know,
Yeah,
as and here it's don't smile till Easter, because
right.
obviously the term
Okay.
times and stuff. But I'm just like, really, really. Anyway,
Anyway, Ollie, you've got a
Sure.
question about societal issues and drama, haven't you?
Yeah, so I think one of the big things I'm interested in is from the classroom to the local community to the national outside world, making a difference, making the lesson not end in the classroom and going to get kids probably doing it in service or whatever. How do you incorporate global or contemporary issues into drama teaching? Or also, how do you feel drama is a good subject in getting students to actually use in school? Outside of school, and I don't just mean school shows. I mean like outside of school at the weekends and etc.
so there are a number of theatre practitioners that you can use really, really effectively in order to approach serious subjects and serious topics. Um, and like we do that within the school. There was an upper six show a couple of weeks ago that we had that was it was it was an adaptation of 1984, but they set it in the future, and Trump was Big Brother, and Room 101 was being sent off to El Salvador and that kind of stuff. So it's a really effective way of being able to talk about issues that are current within the current climate, and also to be able to shed a little bit of light on what's going on.
Sure.
There's a theatre practitioner, Bertolt Brecht, that I used to use quite a lot. And he has this thing called the verse from Dunkst effect, which is making strange or alienation technique. And you there's a play that he wrote called The Resistible Rise of Arturo Ui, which is basically this gangster who starts taking over the local markets, and then he goes to the next market and the next market and the next market in his little town, and then he goes to the next town and starts taking over that. And it's an allegory for Hitler's invasion of Poland. And so being able to use like that idea and
Sure.
allegory as a means of performance, you can connect current day social issues to and really simple things like things within the playground. You know, you
Right.
could have
Yeah.
a play that's set in the school, and then through the use of, you know, slides up on a wall or a video montage, like link what's going on here to something that's taking place within on an international stage.
Mm.
And it gets kids thinking about, first of all, the kind of the politics and the social standing within your own school, but also relating that and thinking more globally.
Sure.
Does
Ah,
that make
good
sense?
example. Fascinating. Yeah, I think great examples, mate. I think it really is something that is a way to getting to the kids. So what might seem as a, hard, complicated political issue, obviously there's so many events going on in the world today. I think an easy way to get kids thinking about it would be through drama teaching. So, well,
Mhm.
not easy, but an interesting way, something they're going to actually relate to. So yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, yeah. And there's the opportunity for loads of cross-curricular activities, like linking
Sure,
things with English, whatever English is doing, and then bringing that into
sure.
the classroom or at our school, because it's a Catholic school, um, and some kind of religious aspect and how that relates to the political situation, and then bringing all those things together.
Next question for me, Nigel, is about those gifted and talented kids who come along occasionally that you be able to identify. It goes back to that previous question where maybe not brilliant academically, but just have a thing, a talent, a skill, a drive. You identify it, and these are maybe children that can go on to have a profession in the arts, in drama, acting, production, whatever it might be, writing even. How do you take that raw material that you can identify as a teacher and really push those students on so that they can enter into what might seem to them, if they're not immersed in it through their families, a strange world? That makes sense?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I think the important thing is to continue that encouragement, not only within the school environment or in the classroom environment, but also going back to Ollie's last question, but reaching out and seeking other avenues within the local community theatre. Um, Canberra is in a very fortunate position where there's probably an amateur production or semi-amateur production taking place every week of the year. It's like the theatre community here is thriving, and I was amazed when I came in that every week of the year, pretty much, you can go and see something different, whether or not it's a musical, whether or not it's a play, whether or not it's a new piece of work. So getting the students involved in external performances and external companies and exposing them to a wider variety of people. One of the things that I've found, and it applies to sport as well, is that the students become very big fish in a very small pond.
Yeah.
And then you get the inflated ego and all that kind of stuff. Whereas being able to put them out into, well, not put them out, but encourage them to participate in things outside of the school and outside of the classroom. From like within my school, for example, it's, like I said, it's a private Catholic school. Um, Working with students that have never even looked at a private Catholic school, or working with people that have had professional experience up in Sydney or in Melbourne or something like that. So, because we've got a very, very vibrant theatre community here, and pretty much you can, uh, yeah, there's so many different people and so many talented people and so many people that are willing to share their experience with everybody that that's something that can be done outside of the classroom.
Yeah,
Inside of the classroom,
I
yeah.
mean, you've taught one or two students that have gone on to do well in that world. Were you able to spot the talent pretty much straight away, or have their successes surprised you?
Um, One in particular, the success didn't surprise me
Okay.
because they were just stupidly talented.
Well, you might as well mention the name because I don't think there's any
All right,
secrets.
well, James Buckley, who was the in-betweeners,
Yeah,
was just crazily talented.
had
Like very,
everything he put his mind to. Yeah,
yeah, it was very, very funny.
yeah,
He musically as well, he had for like a 15, 16-year-old,
yeah,
the amount of pop culture that he knew,
yeah.
ranging from like the early 1950s up until like
All right.
the early 2000s, was incredible. And we would have conversations about like the Rat Pack and Dean Martin and all of that, and then be talking about the latest Oasis release. And so yeah, yeah, he was ridiculously talented. And there are other
He
people.
hasn't surprised you at all.
Well, he's surprised me a few times, but
Yeah.
in terms of in terms of his success, not really. Yeah, yeah,
And the contrary to that, anybody that is now operating out there that you've had some contact with and they have surprised you.
yeah, yeah. The again, another student from um the school where we worked. He has done very, very well from himself. I mean, he was a talented and a hardworking student.
Yeah,
And it's I think there are some students that I've taught in the past who, and one particular student, I won't mention who it is, but really, really talented. He's a great singer, great actor, great kind of mover and dancer. But he didn't have the graft.
mm,
And I would tell him that there would be students who would go for auditions for acting schools or go for auditions that would be nowhere near as talented as you, but they put in two,
yeah.
three, four, five times as
Yeah.
effort, five times
It's
as
the
much
same with
effort.
football and sport, isn't it?
That's
It's
right.
exactly the same.
Yeah.
And they're going to be the ones that get the job. And again, it
Yeah.
was that big fish in a little pond situation. And this student at our school, I think, I mean, he was, like I said, he was very talented, but he's put in the hard graft and worked and worked and worked and worked. And he's done very well from himself as well. Yeah.
So it can go both ways. Interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nigel. Ollie, you've got a final
Sure.
question. Very up to
Just
date
before I
one.
go into it, funnily enough, one of the things I'm trying to do for my own mental health stress release is cut off, come in from work, cut off, watch something, a sitcom. So I've just completed it, mate. Just completed the whole of the In-Betweeners again just after work. And so, without the ads, 23, 25 minutes, absolutely brilliant. Terry and I, we did a different show, anyone listening, on education in TV, and that was
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, so just thinking it might be difficult, trying to, think about the future of drama and the impact of AI, which is obviously big in education, but in terms of drama and maybe looking post-education and what the students are going to need to do if they want to take a career in it, what do you think the potential impact of the digital world, the chat GPT is going to have on drama? I hear things, I listen to podcasts, the rest is entertainment, and they were talking about the worry of script writers just being made redundant because people are just going to smash it through chat GPT. What are your thoughts on the future of drama education in terms of the AI world?
Well, I think that AI is like I've used it, and what I've used it for in my own teaching is being able to be more specific in mapping the Australian curriculum to the content that I'm teaching. So I've got my unit of work, which I haven't
Sure.
AI'd, and then I'm able to be able to stick it into ChatGPT or something and say, list specifically where this unit of work fits
Brilliant. Yeah.
into the Australian curriculum. So be the mapping situation for
Yeah.
me is like something that I don't enjoy doing, and so that's taken some of that hard labor out of that process. So
Yeah.
that's a really beneficial thing for me. I was talking to a friend the other week who's a design technology teacher, and I was saying that I don't think that AI is going to be able to replace a drama teacher or be able to have a significant impact because it's all practical, it's tactile. You know, an AI can design the table, but the AI can't, well, I mean, you can get robots to do it and everything, but can't get the tools out
Yeah.
and handcraft the table for you. They're skills that need to be learned, skills that need to be
Yeah.
honed and practiced over years and years and years. And it's the same with acting, or same with the
Right.
drama classroom, where you can get AI to spit out a lesson plan or to spit out um, creative stimulus, but you won't be able to, it won't be able to influence what the students can produce
No.
in that creative capacity. And I also don't think that, like, the banter that the kids have, you know, I don't think AI is going to be able to replicate that.
No. I think
Like,
it should just
it'll
give you like you're
influence
saying,
it.
the tools to then use to create that your own magic in the classroom, I
That's
think.
right. And
Yeah.
so I personally, I'm not that worried about AI taking over the practical elements of my
Good.
of drama, and also beyond into the real world,
Mm.
because in my opinion, nothing beats that live experience. Nothing beats going to
Yeah.
see a band live on stage. Nothing beats going to see a performance up on stage in the flesh and
Sure.
blood. Um, where I do think there will be issues, I do think that in terms of like the getting the AI to produce screenplays and stuff, I do understand the concern there, but I also think that eventually, surely, like in my crude understanding, AI digests the things that it can scan, and so therefore it will eventually eat itself,
Yeah.
Sure.
and so there'll be repetition. So
Yeah.
there will be very little original
Sure.
creative material that is going to be produced from AI. So the likes of you or Terry or whoever is going to be able to create something original, which
Mm.
AI won't be able to do. AI
I
can
suppose it
kind of
can't.
replace it, but it's not going to be able to have that creative spark.
As a matter of interest, Nigel, I got one of the AI vehicles to try and write a novel because I do a bit of fiction writing, and
Yeah.
it was absolutely dreadful. Artistic people have not, certainly as things stand, have very little to fear. I would
Yeah.
suggest, just awful, as if written by a 10-year-old, essentially. So
I think. I
things will
think.
continue
Yeah.
to change, but I think the kind of impact may be overstated at this stage as far as the arts are concerned. Could be proven
I
wrong,
think
of
in
course.
my minimal understanding, it's not going to be able to replicate thoughts, emotions, or our own individual. Us three could all respond differently to an event going on. So I don't. I think that's the beauty of drama. It's getting the human response, and as you said earlier, about how you act and how others respond to that. So yeah, I think you're pretty
Yeah, and
safe, hopefully.
from a teaching point of view, essentially it's another tool in your tool bag,
100%.
and if and you should, there's no.
I really liked what you said. I did something similar. I wrote actually on that the mental health issue lessons, quite a lot of lessons. And in the IB, you have to do service as a service component. They're changing it to community involvement now. it can be direct action, indirect action, advocacy, or research. And I just said to ChatGPT, here's my lesson. Please create 3 service activities the students can do based on my lesson. And I needed to play around with the language, but it was really good. I thought, "No, that saved me so much work." And it's like, I'm quite a proud person in I love, like you. My lessons, I feel very attached to them, but that's not taking anything onto my lesson. That's just, it's already out there what the IB want. My lesson's already out there. Can you just match them together, please? And bang, save me a lot of
Yeah.
work. So, yeah,
Yeah, I
I think
think
that's the
it's,
way we use it, in my opinion.
when I was at school, and the teacher would say, "Oh, you're never going to have a calculator in your pocket," or whatever it
Yeah.
was, and like those kind of things. And it's the same thing. I think it's something that needs to be embraced, but there needs to be some understanding of what it is. Our school's going through a process at the moment of trying to understand some of the ways in which it can be manipulated and the ways in which it can be used, but the ways it can also be used as a tool. And so it'll be interesting to see where the school lands in terms of policy for the students.
Well, I think you're ahead of the game in your subject because from what I've heard, the way some exam bodies are going is the future embracing AI is getting students to actually respond to things AI have done to analyze more. So in a subject like drama, where you're already analyzing a lot of emotions, etc., what's going on, you're already teaching those skills. So for some subjects, it might be a new skill they've got to teach students rather than creating, which kids could, do via the computer. We'll give you the answer. You've now got to analyze that. You've now got to do this and that with it. So I think drama's probably ahead of the game in teaching those skills anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're very lucky. I think music and art are very lucky as well in terms of being able to, like I said, you can't, like an AI is not going to be able to teach you how to play a trumpet.
No.
It's not going to be able to, tell you how the brush strokes that you're going to need to do in order to replicate or, imitate Van Gogh or whatever. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Good place to end. But just we can't let you go, Nigel, without really giving some practical help, maybe to some of the maybe younger people listening. Let's say they're already teachers or they want to become a teacher. They're in, let's say, the UK system, and they want to go out and live and teach in Australia. Could you give them any practical advice or maybe just briefly throw up any of the sort of barriers or processes that have to be negotiated as things stand? Because I know immigration to Australia is tending to change at the moment. But what would they
Yeah.
need to know?
So there's a few things. So my situation was I was getting married. My wife's Australian,
Mm.
and so I came over on an intent to marry visa, and then it took probably about 5 years to go from initially that to getting permanent residency, and then eventually getting Australian citizenship. Now, the reason why majority of my teaching has been in the private system and the Catholic system was because I wasn't a permanent resident or an Australian citizen. I was not able to get full-time employment within the government system. If that had been the case, then the likelihood is that I would be doing all of my teaching in the government
Yeah.
system like I did in the UK. So if anyone's coming over, then being able to look at the process that needs to be done for the visa process. So, and again, this was 20 years ago, but applying for a skilled workers visa. So a teacher, from my understanding, and I'd need to double check on it, but is comes under the skilled workers visa application process. So being able to apply for a skilled worker, you get, or again, I'm not 100% on this, but skilled workers visa, you're more likely to be able to get a permanent position within in the government system if that's something that you're interested in. So that is something that you need to be thinking about. In terms of the style of teaching, the style of teaching is very similar. New South Wales system is very similar the national curriculum style of teaching within the UK, the same as Victoria, and the same in the ACT, up until year 12, where it kind of diverges away a little bit. There are websites that you can look at. I think one of them is called teachit.com.au, I think. I can get some of the websites and we can put them in the YouTube
Yeah,
link.
definitely.
Right.
And that is something that is a company over here that will help you with the process of the visas that you need, the type of school that you might be looking towards go, and they also have some kind of links. And there's also other companies which are similar to the cover companies, you know, where it's called Relief over here. I've been over here for too long, so I can't remember what it's called in England. But where you'd get the Australian teachers working in various schools as day relief supply teachers, the supply teaching system. So there are similar things here. They're more in New South Wales and Sydney and more metropolitan areas rather than like Canberra's quite a small area. But there are still lots of people that come over and do the teaching thing. So there is lots of information. There's lots of information available, especially online, with regards to the processes that you need to do and you need to get to, and the visa application process. And I think since COVID, the working holiday visa, I think, has been extended to 3 years,
Right.
as opposed to the 2 that it was. And I think the age group, or at least when COVID finished, the age range went up from, because you could only do it up to 25. I think it went up to like 27, 28. But that might have changed. But again, I can get some information to you, and you can stick it in the link.
That'd be great. Well, thanks very much. No, in
Thanks a lot.
fact, thanks for everything. I think you probably agree, Ollie, we couldn't have had a better first guest.
Absolutely brilliant, mate. Thanks for your time and all the valuable insights for anyone listening who's thinking about a career in drama teaching. I think there's not much better
Yeah,
advert for it than the last
absolutely.
hour or so.
Oh,
Absolutely.
it's well worth it, and it's one of those. It's a subject to teach that is like no other.
Sure.
It freaks me out going into a classroom and the desks are all in a row and all the rest of it. Give me a room where there's no desks and
Oh,
kids
no,
running
no,
around.
no, no, no. I can't
Perfect.
entirely agree with that, Nige.
You
Like a
think?
nice row of desks with me standing at the front.
Like I said, my wife, who's a maths teacher, her worst day is if she gets a supply lesson of a drama class.
Right.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
I can
Worst
imagine.
thing that can happen to her.
Right, brilliant stuff. We'll let you guys get off because it's fairly late at night over there. It's a beautiful June, just gone noon here in London.
Nice.
So it just remains for me to say, as ever, anybody watching, hit the like button, the subscribe, please. We need more subscribers. Hit the notification bell so you'll get fresh videos when they're up and running. And if you want to email us, the email is always attached to the end of this video as it appears on YouTube. So, guys, thanks very much once again, and look forward to seeing you again, Ollie. And I'll see you when you ship up in. Oh yeah, you're here, aren't you, Ollie? In the next few weeks.
Back in England in a month, mate. Yeah.
Brilliant. And Nigel, I'm going to be seeing you sometime in the autumn when you come back.
Yeah, end of September.
Excellent. Thanks,
Nice one.
guys.
Cheers.
See you again now.
See you later.
Take care. Bye bye.
Cheers.